criminality is a class issue, but at the same time it's not. Because people who are poor are going to do what they can to survive because they can't afford what rich people can afford. And rich people aren't going to do it just because they can afford it. I mean, they could commit a crime, but that doesn't mean they're going to steal like poor people would. And I also feel like, I don't know, like rich people have it all, and I don't think they should be committing crimes because they're already surviving, and it all ties to survival of the fittest, basically, if you think about it.
Is crime a class issue in America? I think yes and no, because at certain points there are situations when things are just and some have to make some pretty drastic measures depending on who you are, but it doesn't really have to be about your class or whatnot. But poor people or people of lower income do more crime, will cause more crime because they have to support themselves in a way that they can because they have low income or they just don't have housing or whatever, or it's because they have to support their kids, so you're gonna do whatever possible to support your kids. But also, rich people, I guess higher income people, do crimes, but the thing is that the people that are getting caught while doing crimes are minorities. But it can go either way. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer, but that's my opinion on things. Like, the ones that are getting caught minorities, and it's kind of like our society is built to where minorities are not supposed to, but are meant to get caught in whatever they're doing. And
do I think poor people do more violent crimes than rich people? Yes, because they feel the need that they need to provide for themselves, and if they have kids, provide for their kids, and they will go through drastic measures to provide for those kids. That means rob a bank, rob a convenience store, rob a person on the street. They will do whatever it takes in order to provide for those kids. And that's
both because if you're living in like a really like low, crappy place, like I feel like you're gonna want what the rich people have. So you're gonna go and start trying to steal stuff. But if you're rich, you're just like, oh, I don't need any of that. I have it all. Like, I feel like it's more of like how a person feels about one thing. Like I said, like poor people, they want what the rich people have. And yeah, I do feel like it is a class issue, but I mean, I don't really know much about it.
I do think so. Am I supposed to elaborate on that? I think that in our different social classes, there are different crimes within our social classes. I think we, as an American society, there's crimes such as Wall Street crimes with the wealthier people that don't get coverage the way coverage gets. Let's say, obviously, going on the person, a kid robbing a store, makes national news. I think that crime is 100% wealth and social and a color issue, I believe. I truly believe that if a black police officer shot a white male, consequences would be a lot different. We don't hear about many of the crimes on Wall Street, taking money from innocent people, lying to them, and so there are much worse crimes being, I think, done and committed that we don't even hear about. We hear about the stuff that the media wants us to hear about, and so I 100% think it is color-related, wealth, social class, socioeconomic class. I think it's all.
Criminality is a social issue in America. It's funny because I was asked this question last year, but now as I think about it this year, in terms of a social issue, and like college prep kids are currently reading the narrative of Frederick Douglass. It's hard hard to say. Like, is it yes and I still kind of feel like how it was last year, like yes and no. I think unfortunately people with less money or people of color are the ones that are getting caught, and they have more consequences than someone like a non-person of color. And it's crazy because if you look at Frederick Douglass, it's kind of been this on like Caucasian, like whites have not had consequences, whereas blacks have, and I feel like it keeps going on and on and on. So at what point can we fight to end the social change of criminality? I think it's once people decide, you know what, we're going to come together and get educated. So is it a problem? I think for minorities, yes, and not even minorities, but for both, just any people of color at the kind of lower class. That's, I think, the problem.
Issue in America.
Yes, I think it is. So like a couple different examples that I've seen. One at school, just from talking to students, it seems like drug use seems like probably white kids, black kids, Hispanic kids, probably all use drugs at about the same rate. But if you look at suspensions and stuff like that, and people who are getting caught, it seems like probably more students of color are getting caught for drugs than white people. Now, I'm not blaming anybody for this, but that's just my observation. Two, when I worked, I used to work in a restaurant, and I was the server, and there was a lot of people who were Latinos that worked in the kitchens with me. And I noticed that we would talk about different things, and as a white woman, I get pulled over like once every 3 or 4 years. And the young Hispanic men that I worked with were getting pulled over every weekend. And so maybe I was doing criminal things, maybe not. Who knows? I was never getting in trouble for it because I was never getting pulled over. If those guys were to ever get pulled over and they had, let's say, drugs in the car or anything that they could ever get in trouble for, they're going to get in trouble because they're getting pulled over every single weekend. The other things I was thinking about, Ferguson and the issue in New York, you just don't usually hear about police brutality against white people in the same way as you are in these issues. And I think that you may feel one way or another about walkouts or such. I think the big issue is just people want a less violent society, and so these are just kind of bringing light to that.
Criminality tied in with poverty and with lack of money. Here in the United States, I would say it definitely is. It's definitely a stereotype that is a big part of our culture. If somebody looks like they have money, they look like they're professional, they're given the benefit of the doubt. If walking into 7-Eleven, if I look even dressed like this, if I look like I'm a teacher, if I look like I'm a professional, everybody treats me nicely. If I wander in there looking like I'm homeless, they're going to be watching me. Wondering what I'm in there for, assuming I'm going to probably steal something, and it's rampant. It's been something that's been a part of our society for as long as I can remember. I would say it's at least as pervasive as even race issues is associated